you put out a list of the dumbest mistakes that guys make on the first 3 dates, and I want to go through these. The first one was they're way too shy and stick to surface level talk.
Mm-hmm. So many guys are trying to give the woman a fun experience, and that's not what women who are looking for commitment are looking for. They're tired of the fun. They are tired of just having endless people dancing for them. That's not really what they want. They want substance, but they're afraid to tell you they want substance. Give her your life mission. Give her your purpose. Show her who you are and where you are going, and invite her along on that journey. That is what attracts women.
But surely you also need to come across as being fun. You can't just do the most boring thing in the world. So how do you balance these two?
If you are talking about what is most deeply passionate to you, how could it possibly not be fun? Yes, if you're just rambling on for 6 hours about your stock portfolio or something like that, it's awful. But if you're having an intimate conversation with another human being, explaining that, and then learning her mission, learning her desires, what she's passionate about, it should be fun, but not fun for the sake of fun. It's not masturbatory fun. It is fun for a purpose that drives education about the other person.
What is the easiest way for a guy to broach going beyond surface level talk and into something a bit deeper?
Tell her stories that illuminate what your life goals are, that illuminate what your values and principles are. Don't tell her life stories that try to make her impressed by who you are, or make her feel sorry for you, or make her want to jump on top of you. Tell her the life stories that illuminate who you really are as a man and where you are going. And that right there will educate her while also entertaining her.
What's the difference between the two? Or could you give us an example?
Yes, so many men default back to trying to explain what they've purchased recently, or they default back to how amazing they are in some way. They try to tell stories that pitch them as I'm better than my friends, or these are my exes. This is why I left them, because I was better than them, or whatever it may be, that you are trying to elicit a certain feeling in the other person that then makes them act a certain way. Instead, tell the stories that educate them while also entertaining them, and say, this is a glimpse into who I really am, convenient and inconvenient. Here is who I am, and here is what I'm trying to achieve. Those are the pieces. So you may say, let me tell you a story about my work lately. Let me tell you a story about this place where I volunteer. Let me tell you a story about my family. And you tell that story to show her who you are.
There will be a lot of women that are listening, so I would like to know whether you think that this is something that guys that you go on dates with do regularly, or whether you would like them to do it more. The second one, they go way too hard with red pill and pickup artist tactics.
So many guys are trying to rush through and establish physical contact and dominance as fast as possible. And what they're trying to do is mimic being in love. They're trying to do something called love bombing. They're trying to make her feel, wow, he's really in love with me. And then it releases the same oxytocin hormone in her that creates a rush and makes her feel overwhelmed. It's love bombing, and it is just fake. And it is not what she's actually looking for. Insecure women will fall for it. Secure women will shove you back and through the door because they know what you're trying to do, and it's really uncomfortable for them. The only thing you're going to do is farm insecure women, which is why red pill and PUA guys say hit on 100 women a night and one of them will sleep with you. You are trying to find someone who's so insecure she lets you jump through her boundaries and make her feel validated.
One of the problems that a bunch of friends had about 10 or 15 years ago when the game came out first with Neil Strauss was they became very disenchanted with who they were personally because they created a delta between the person that their evening partner was going to go home with and the person that they really were. And that made them feel bad about themselves. They thought, oh, hang on, so this is how performative I have to be in order to get a girl to go home with me, which then makes them both resent themselves, but even more so resent women because they feel unlovable as who they are, despite the fact that they've never shown who they are to the person that they're talking to, because that person is inherently broken and unlovable. But that positing an ideal version of you, or a PUA ideal version of you, and feeling the gap between where you are and who that person is, made more of the guys that did pick up blackpilled than the guys that didn't go home with girls.
These are the guys who come into my coaching practice with millions of dollars in the bank, and they sleep with 5 different girls every week. and they say, Adam, I have never been more miserable than I am right now. These are the guys who come in because they think everything is about being fake. This was like, it goes back to Red Pill. It teaches you to be avoidant on purpose, to never find real love, because real love is impossible. When you learn that that is not true, when you learn that you must be who you are so that you can attract someone who is attracted to you long term, that's the only way to build love. And once you do that, then you start filtering for the right people.
Next one, they play games like don't text her for 3 days, bro.
Game playing is just a way of saying, I don't trust you enough to connect with you, so I'm going to push your buttons. I'm going to manage you like a video game, and I'm going to play until I get a win condition or until I get game over, and then I'm out of here. And that's what games are. If you're playing games with her and trying to read her mind and trying to figure it out, you've already lost.
We've got the other side of this as well, which is they're way too nice and overly romantic.
Way too nice and overly romantic either comes across as love bombing, like you're being fake, so you're trying to make her feel amazing to forget that she doesn't actually love you yet, so she'll sleep with you. Or it comes across as being eager to please mom because you're trying to please women the way you pleased your mother growing up, and you don't know what women actually want from you. Both are a fairly big turnoff for secure women. The only people who respond to that are avoidant women who are looking for anxious men to snap up and have sex with for a period of time and then dump you and then just reconfirm the red pill beliefs, or women who are really anxious and are ultimately craving that approval from you. And you don't really want to connect with either woman. You want a woman who is secure and stable, who is going to give you a life partnership.
Mark Manson's models says that the number one turnoff for women is neediness. What's your thoughts on that?
Neediness is very different from having needs. Neediness is childhood. Neediness is saying, I can't find solutions. I'm going to lay here crying until someone else solves my problem for me. It is not, like most men say, being a completely immovable stone that never has a weakness, because women don't want that either. They want to see that you have vulnerabilities and challenges that they can help you with, but they also want to see you rising to the occasion and solving those problems, because they want and respect a man who views solutions and approaches them and applies them.
They assume she doesn't want to hear from them again because she wasn't explicitly throwing herself at him.
So many guys who navigate from red pill into regular dating and say, she didn't try to sleep with me. What's wrong with me? And they build validation based on if she's trying to have sex with him. And women do this too. If you don't understand what real interest from a securely attached person looks like, someone who's not rushing into the relationship for validation, if you don't know what that looks like, you think they are uninterested or bored or boring. And you must recalibrate what actual romantic interest looks like before you can really pursue a healthy relationship.
They try to rush to sex.
Rushing to sex is just going to muddy the waters. Number one, it's going to flood you with feelings and her with feelings that are not actually what's happening. It's going to convince you that you love each other even when you don't. You don't even know each other yet. And it's going to turn off any women that you actually would want to build a long-term relationship with.
I wonder, I really do, would be very interested to get some more data around attachment styles and psychological stability correlated with whether women have sex either on the first date or how many dates it would be. And this would need to be revealed rather than stated preferences, because there's a pretty big observer effect here to perhaps give a different answer to the one that actually happens. But I would be very interested. I'm pretty fascinated by the ability of modern culture, especially a very sex-positive modern culture, to perhaps reprogram or deprogram some felt innate predispositions that women do have when it comes to how long they feel like they should wait. You know, because if you're around, unless you come from a particularly traditional, very strong values household, if you are a girl that is around a bunch of other girls and all of those girls have a lot of casual sex, regardless of your own personality disposition and your own values, it's going to be very difficult to not have that impact the way that you see relationships.
Well, especially if you look at it and she says, I have very little to offer. Here is a really awesome man. All the other women on earth are going to give him sex instantly. Why on earth would he stay with me if I don't? I'm going to have to let him do whatever he wants so that I can try to keep him to be competitive in the marketplace of pulling in a good man. That's a lot of women. Women set the price of sex for each other, and a lot of women are racing toward the bottom.
They share the wrong type of stories, Mrs. Mann.
Goes right back to what we talked about, is share the stories about your family. Share the stories that illuminate your good friendships. Share the stories about your accomplishments without being a pompous asshole about it. Share the stories that show her what you're building, not just what you've accomplished in the past, but what you're building for the future. Share the stories about your business. That tells her you have a business. Share the stories about your best friends. It tells her you have best friends. Share your stories about your best friends and how they are moral people. It tells her you spend time around moral people. Tell her stories about your mother or your sister or your family. It tells her that you value those people and you will continue to be around them. And it tells her what you do when you're in relationships. Tell her those stories rather than stories that make her think that you are a complete stud in the bedroom and you have $1 million in the bank. That's not what a stable woman's looking for.
Final one. They don't mention commitment at all.
Women are petrified to mention commitment. Men are petrified to mention commitment. Most people want it. Everyone's afraid to talk about it because they think they will be the psycho in the room. What I tell people is through my 3-date method, you should be dating through the first 3 dates so that you can talk about becoming an exclusive couple by the 3rd date. And this is the system that actually works for people who are moving through with good, secure attachment. 3 dates is all you really need to build an at least exclusive relationship. I'm not talking get married yet, but to know that the other person is the right person for you, 3 dates, and then you begin really testing for deeper commitment.
Do you think that it's more difficult in the modern world for men or women to talk about commitment early on?
I think that both are equally terrified of it, and I think that women are utterly afraid of it because they think they are never allowed to speak about it. I have women who come into my live events on TikTok, for example, and they say, Adam, it's been 8 years. Do you think he's ever going to think about marrying me? And I say, have you ever asked him? Well, anytime I've kind of brought up the idea, he's broken up with me for about 6 weeks and then gets back together with me and has slept with 3 other women. So I've learned never to even mention commitment. Okay. Most women will wait around for 8 years on the idea of maybe getting married someday. So I would say that society definitely is harder on women who want commitment. But if women were more open about what they wanted, they would filter out the men who don't want it and they would attract the men who absolutely do want it.